All right, so, sorry about that. We're the Memphis Astronomical Society. Jeremy can cut all that out of the video when he edits it. And if you're here or associated with the Memphis Astronomical Society, you are important. And the way you know you are important is that all important things have a QR code, all right? We have a QR code. So scan that if you want to join our society, or you can go to our website and click on join at the top menus of our webpage, and go in here and fill out the information and join the Memphis Astronomical Society. It is a good deal at twice the price for the $25 a year fee. On our website, you'll see 10 good reasons to join the Memphis Astronomical Society. I say there's only two. They are: one, if you want to, and the other one is if you don't want to. That covers it. So we also have a calendar. So we have a cool thing happening this month, the first time in many years for the Memphis Astronomical Society. We are planning a picnic. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. Then on June 10th, next Monday, there'll be a presentation and observing session at Collierville Library. I'm not sure, it's starting to get dark late. So these public presentations in the city are subject to varying degrees of how much observing you actually get done. So we'll see how that goes. June the 15th is one of our Saturday teaching opportunities. So we meet at Hinton Park in Collierville. It's light polluted skies. But it's easy to find. It's easy to get to. You don't have to drive an hour outside of town. And if you've got problems with your telescope, or trying to learn how to use your telescope, or just want to look at some telescopes because you're thinking about buying one, you want to see what other people have and what kind you might want to buy, this is a good place to come and start learning about telescopes or getting some help with what you've got. June the 29th is on our calendar for Burton's observing session. That's a dark sky observing session that's available to even people that aren't members of the MAS. We'd like to note that next month we will not have one of these meetings, Zoom or otherwise. We're going to have a break in July from having a meeting. Hey, welcome. Come on in here.
This hard. I'm fine.
No, you're fine. We also have a group of people that like to play with words and cameras. And so we have the Memphis Astrophotography Focus Group. Get it? Astrophotography, focus on astrophotography. Not only that, but the primary image format used in astrophotography, professional or otherwise, is .fits, or what's called FITS files. They contain a lot more information than you get out of a JPEG or a GIF file format or anything like that. And so that's why they're used in astrophotography. And then, of course, we are in MAS, and since we kind of clown around a lot in these meetings, it could be interpreted as misfits, but since we're in MAS, we're mass fits. So that's where that comes from. So anyway, if you're even remotely interested in astrophotography, or think you want to get interested in astrophotography, this is the Zoom meetings only. The next one will be next Wednesday night, right? And you're welcome to come and listen in. If you got questions, we've got people with answers. We've got people that shoot iPhones through the eyepiece of their Dobbs. We've got people that have way more money than most of us invested in telescopes that do this as well. And so we cover the spectrum, I guess. So,
Can I talk about item number 3 for a second?
Yes, please.
Well, one of the neat things about item number 3, there's Jeremy's down in Chile right now with buddy Brian Hancock. And one of the contacts down there approached me, say, hey, I'm getting ready to set up a telescope in the Atacama Desert of Chile. And will you help me do it? So we're going to start that process next Wednesday of setting up a telescope in the southern hemisphere. And we get to pick targets, and we can do this over several months. So it's going to be really exciting. He's going to tell us what he was looking for. And then item number 4, John and amongst a couple other people are going to show an alternative to buying a telescope to start on, one of these robotic telescopes. So we get really exciting stuff coming up next week. So sign on.
Thank you, Merrill. We do. Lots of fun in the mass fits.
Will these be putting any pictures online, or you know?
If you join, you have access to the Slack channel, and there's all kinds of photos all the time.
Oh, okay.
Stuff we create.
You know, we have our data files available that we share among ourselves as well, between our members.
And the Meteorite, which is the monthly
Yeah, we got a lot of pictures
newsletter,
there.
but it's all kinds of images and a whole library of those.
And on our Facebook channel, Facebook page. I had something I was going to say, but it's left me. I'm gone. So, all right, astrophotography. This is a lot of fun. Oh, I know what it was. So, as you are upgrading your ZWO cameras, think twice about getting rid of your old one. I'll be making a presentation in the not too distant future on a secondary purpose for your retired ZWO cameras, including all-sky camera that will wireless provide you all the recording and keep up with what's going on in the sky all the time. So good for meteor hunting and everything else. All right. We have a store. We don't have a store. We have a bunch of swag that's available. Did we get anything from this? No, but what we don't do is we don't lose money on this anymore. We used to print up T-shirts and stuff, and you know, we'd print 100 T-shirts or something, and it'd be 3 or 4 years finally selling all of them, or if we ever did sell all of them. And you know, we made a few dollars more than we never lost money, but we didn't make much. And then the IRS decided that fundraising had way too many rules associated with it. You could only do it twice a year, and you had to do it in a 30-day period, and so it was pain. So if you want to identify yourself with the group of cool kids, all this, then you know, get you something with our logo on it, and hang out with other people, and they'll know who you are.
Sure.
Speaking of cool kids, we got some new ones. Bruce Snipper has joined the Memphis Astronomical Society. If you're here, raise your hand on the. I can't see anybody on the Zoom. Let's see. Zoom go. I don't see him there, but if you're on the Zoom, feel free to speak out when I call your name. We also, oh, okay. That's not going to work. Okay, there you go.
Oh, that's
Bruce Snipper, Lisa Trentham.
that's me.
Oh, welcome. Welcome to the cool kids. Jonathan Freese. All right. Yang Chen. Not one here. And I think this last one, Lee Race. I've seen she's on our Zoom meeting tonight. Good evening, Lee. Welcome. Welcome everyone to the Memphis Astronomical Society. We have a really cool newsletter, and we don't show you much, but I printed out a copy of it. It's beautifully done. It's color. It's got lots of cool stuff. I really, we owe the world of, we have probably one of the best newsletters of any club organization I've ever seen, much less astronomy related. You know, maybe clubs like, what is it, the Pacific Astronomical Society of the Pacific or something like that. They've got about 5,000 members and professional staff, and I think maybe they produce a pretty good newsletter too. But Steve, thank you so much. This is wonderful work that's done every month. It's available to you as of your with your paid dues, paid membership to the Memphis Astronomical Society. It comes out once a month, and it's a wonderful thing. Also, thank you very much to those that contribute pictures and articles and stuff that we produce in this. As a member, also, you get access to our private observing site in the dark skies outside of Memphis, and it's called Astro Flats, and there's another play on words that the Mass Fits came up with because they like doing that sort of thing.
Anne's the one that created that word.
Oh, Astro Flats is Anne's doing.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, she's one of the primary Mass Fits. All right. So, then this coming Saturday, we have a picnic planned. So, Merrill, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Okay. Is that Astro Flats too, but those you don't know. And members only, as you can see. The issues we have is that the weather forecast is not looking wonderful. Our going in position was to do a picnic and then observing afterwards. Well, the picnic may
Guys, we can't hear Merrill.
be pulled off. Somebody saying something?
It sounded like my one.
You can't hear what he said.
Hey, guys, let me see if I can turn up the volume
Probably
here.
need to make it.
Watch the recording. You mean go up there?
Oh, he was on the wall. Okay.
Okay. Whoever said something on Zoom, try it again.
He was saying that we can't hear Merrill. There's no mic on Merrill.
Ah, okay.
Yep, that was me. I barely hear him in the background.
All right. The problem is the forecast for Saturday is not all that great. We were hoping to have a picnic and then follow it by the observing. It's supposed to rain tonight, tomorrow, and Wednesday. And if you go back to the slide, one slide, you can see Astro Flats. There's a lot of open space there we've planted grass seed, but it probably won't be much help this year. And the fear is it's going to be really muddy too. So we have a sub team that's working on making the final decision on Wednesday. We have a backup dates, June 29th, and possibly, if that doesn't work, July 27th. So stay tuned. We'll communicate quick as we make the decision. The other thing, if we do decide to go, we're asking everybody to bring side dishes, that care to bring side dishes. And I'll post that on Wednesday, what we've already had volunteers do. And that way you can fill in the blanks. So hope we pull it off. Be nice if the sky's cleared. But if they don't, we'll decide whether we delay it a month or not.
All right, thank you, Merrill.
Here, a quick question.
Sure.
I've never been out here before. Can I find this place on Google Maps? Or just follow your directions in the link?
On the link of the brochure, it has the Google map location. Put it in your GPS and it'll take you right there. Okay. Yeah. If you have any trouble, email me.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. So there's a picnic, hopefully this Saturday. All right. Tonight's presenter. And I swear when I got this, I thought, I've known Edwin for 15, 20 years, something, since since Jim Hill was running the Rainwater, and and I got the right glasses on. There you go. Jeremy sent me this introduction thing, and I thought, no way in hell I'm going to memorize this much. And in fact, I'm probably not even going to read it. And the more I read it, the more I thought, I need to let people know what they're in for. So I am going to read this, and just sit there and take it. You can take it. He'll get up here and start whining and making excuses about it all and everything, but just don't listen to him. Over the past 30 years, artist and lecturer Edwin Faughn has developed a unique, inspiring, and informative presentation called Reflections of the Universe that focuses on the magnificent visual beauty and unimaginable vastness of the heavens. This program is illustrated with numerous astronomical paintings by Faughn, as well as some of the latest spectacular images and discoveries in the field of space science. The program has been very well received, generally lasts about 40 minutes, and is designed for people of all ages. Edwin has presented hundreds of programs to diverse audiences, including universities, museums, schools, aviation firms, conferences, churches, civics groups, senior and youth groups, scouts, and various other organizations, such as NASA's Space Grant Consortium, Winthrop Rockefeller Institute, Federal Express World Headquarters, Millington Naval Air Station, Pink Palace Family of Museums, CTI Imax Theater, Sharpe Planetarium, Lichterman Nature Center, Germantown Performing Arts Center, Arkansas State University, University of Ole Miss Conference, Ole Miss Conference keynote speakers, Arkansas State University keynote speaker for NASA's STEAM initiative, and Crew Training International, CTI, is one of the leading providers of cockpit crew resource management training for the world's military aviators. His original work has been featured in and on the covers of leading international space science magazines, exhibits, planetarium productions. A few of its credits include, but are not limited to, Scientific American, Astronomy, Sky and Telescope, Science News, Federal Express World Headquarters, the world premiere of Titanic, the exhibition, Crew Training International, the International Association of Astronomical Artists, World Tour Exhibition, the Artist's Universe, and the late Carl Sagan's Planetary Report magazine for the Planetary Society. He served nearly 20 years as art director for the Sharpe Planetarium and of the Pink Palace Family of Museums in Memphis, Tennessee, and is now director of Rainwater Observatory at French Camp, Mississippi, which is one of the largest public observatories in the Southeast. His work has also been seen on NASA's Ames Research Center main Kepler website. He's tinkered in this stuff for a while, and probably pretty good at it. So without any more carrying on, Edwin, welcome and thank you. Thank you. Let me get your program. Right. Oh, here. While I'm doing that.
Thank you. Figure out this thing.
Edwin has some mobility issues.
Yeah, got some knees going bad on me. Having a little trouble getting around. So, a couple of motorcycle wrecks I had when I was a kid are finally starting to bite me now, and nothing like hitting the pavement at about 45 miles an hour. While he's getting everything ready there, I want to thank you all for allowing me to come. Thank you, Rick. I appreciate you coming in. It's great to see you, familiar faces in here, Keith and Jim Turner, he's around here somewhere, and Freddie Diaz, and some a lot of different people that's been here. I've seen, it's been many years since I've seen them here, but it's been quite a while back. But I want to thank you for the opportunity to come and speak here. That was a big change moving from Memphis, Tennessee to French Camp. Have you ever been to French Camp, Mississippi? I felt like I was moving off the planet. Still do. I hadn't quite gotten used to that yet. But it's an amazing place down there. It's really beautiful, dark skies, and it's really incredible there to see that. But the program has got some of the like you said, some of the stuff that was in here. I've also got some cartoons laced here and there, and it's got a lot of my personal artwork in it. Got some of the this is a very not a high technical type presentation of any sort. It's just a lot of cool visual candy and all these new, if you're keeping up with the James Webb Telescope and some of that stuff, the images are just spectacular. And some of this information will be old hat. Some of it you've probably already heard before. I geared this one in, like I said, for a general audience, and it's been one of the most popular ones that I've done over the years. I've got a whole bunch of different ones that I do. And, if I do ask if y'all would hold any questions or comments, things until the end of the program, we've got a lot of slide images to go through, and I'll answer as much of stuff as we can go along that towards the end of it. But is everybody ready? I'm not sure. Do I advance the slides with this?
Yeah, or right button goes forward, left button goes back.
Okay.
The top button's
The laser? Okay, sounds good. Well, I'm going to sit down over here.
There.
I'm a member of the International Association of Astronomical Artists, and one of our members was a former astronaut, and apparently he had a cold, I think, when he was in space, or got something. I can't remember exactly what they were teasing him about that. I love the expression on his face right there. It's hysterical. I'm going to be using a term in this program. Again, some of this is base stuff. I'm just going to go at the very beginning here. For those that may not be as familiar, I don't know who's in an audience. But I use a term we use here called a light year. It's a unit of measure that astronomers use to measure vast distances in space. When I fired that laser pointer, that beam left my hand and hit that screen at 186,000 miles a second. That's pretty fast. Think how many seconds there are in a year. If you sit here going 1, 2, 3, and multiply that times 186,000, you come up with a number of almost 6 trillion miles. That's one single light year. In this program, I'll be using thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions, and billions of light years, but it's a measure of distance in space. This is a painting that I did of our Milky Way galaxy. Now, this is dated. I need to update this. Since this painting was done, they've discovered there's more of a bar structure there and get the core. But this is our Milky Way galaxy. I usually have to explain to a lot of my audiences the difference between the universe, the solar system, because people get those mixed up. It's like I've been called an astrological illustrator before. No joke. Our newspaper did a front page article on my artwork. Headlines, astrological illustrator. And I was like, you have got to be kidding. And I was just knew I was going to be getting calls from people wanting their horoscopes and things like that. But our Milky Way contains about 200 billion stars. And there are hundreds of billions of other galaxies with anywhere between 1 and 400 billion stars in each one of those. This is our galaxy tilted a little bit. That other one was face on, tilt it more, and that's what it looks like edge on. Those are globular star clusters around the core there. And but the reason I'm showing you these angles, I'll be showing you a Hubble image a little bit later that shows the wide range of different angles of these various different galaxies. Our whole solar system, think about how big our solar system is, the entire solar system. And our sun is one star among 200 billion others just in our galaxy alone. That's unreal, to comprehend that. And then, like I said, there's hundreds of billions of galaxies. But anyone, by the way, seen the Andromeda gigapixel on YouTube? If you guys get a chance, you need to check that out. They zoom in on 1/4 of the Andromeda galaxy and show the sheer, I think Andromeda has about 400 billion stars in it. And it's unreal. I show it to every group that comes out to the observatory, but it is it's called Andromeda gigapixel. But it is a phenomenal high resolution image of the Andromeda galaxy that's just incredible. This is an actual photograph time exposure of our Milky Way. We don't see it quite that bright at the observatory. Some of this brightest stuff in here is down in this range in here. Freddie, some of you guys have been out there before. You can see it in the middle of summertime. It's really beautiful. Jim, you've been out there before. Jim, by the way, you guys have gotten some spectacular images out there. I really appreciate y'all coming out. There's a shot, John Talbot. He is, I don't know if you may be already familiar with him. He's one of our main speakers that come out. That's our domes up on top of the hill. That was shot one morning, I think in April of 2014 during an astronomy conference. That's the sun starting to come up right there. It's not that bright. Again, this brightness in here is down in this range, but it's plain as day splitting the sky. It's really an impressive sight. And get water here. Talbot is doing some amazing research now. He's kind of doing an investigative reconnaissance type thing, looking for deep sky, really stuff that's never been seen before, planetary nebula. It's really incredible work. He spoke at our conference just a couple of weeks ago. Absolutely phenomenal. And a presentation. Jim, were you there at that?
Yes, I was.
That was amazing, wasn't it?
Yep.
He's an incredible astrophotographer. He's actually doing some serious, by the way, his day job, he flies C-130s into hurricanes. He's a hurricane hunter. He brought us a video at one of our conferences one year of the cockpit, and that plane was shaking. I mean, I'd never seen anything like it, and really amazing. But he's a fascinating individual. There's a shot that he took out there. That's I think that's in Sagittarius. That's probably Antares right there on the side there. This is a piece of artwork I created when I was at the Pink Palace of a show we did years ago called Voyager Encounters. And Voyager is, they launched Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 in 1977. They've been traveling now at roughly 35,000 miles an hour at a constant rate of speed. I think one of them is about 3 times the distance between here and Pluto now. To give you an idea of how far away the individual stars are, Voyager traveling at that speed, it's going to take tens of thousands of years before it begins to encounter some of the closest stars in our galaxy, which are only about the closest ones are less than a dozen light years away. I'm telling you this. I was speaking at a sheriff's conference down in Natchez one time, a whole room full of sheriffs. The whole thing was unreal. I was hotel. And I brought this image up and I said it was traveling 35,000 miles an hour. I can't believe these words came out of my mouth. I said, try to get that with a radar detector. You think about a rifle bullet, it's what, 2,000, something like that? Fortunately, they got a kick out of it. This is a classic shot. Y'all probably all familiar with this. This is that shot that was taken by Voyager in 1990. It was out around Neptune. And they took the camera, aimed it back. The sun's out of the field of view out here. And these are light rays reflecting kind of camera type. You see how grainy that image is. And that dot is us. We're the size of a computer pixel on a high resolution image that was coming back from that. It had to be blown up. You see how grainy that is. And Sagan, I think he was the one that had this shot taken. I did about a dozen covers for his magazines out in California with the Planetary Society when he was still alive. But I think he did this. But he made this statement, and most of you have probably already heard this. Forgive me if you have. I may be doing old hat, but like I said, this is going to be a lot of visual candy coming up here shortly. He said, that's here, that's home, that's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you ever heard of, every human being who ever was lived out their lives. The aggregate of our joy and suffering, thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines, every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father, hopeful child, inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there on a mote of dust suspended on a sunbeam. Isn't that incredible? To think about something that tiny. I work with international audiences a lot out to the observatory, and I bring that image up and I think about all what's happening on this planet right now is on that dot. It really kind of puts things in perspective. Now, these next images, I think, I remember I usually have a monitor in front of me here, are some of my artwork. I've painted about everything you can imagine in my lifetime, but I specialized in space and scientific related stuff. I did that for the Pink Palace and did artwork for magazines and things. Did anybody by chance catch the Titanic exhibit when it was in Memphis at the Pyramid? You remember when you were walking through the gallery and you come up to the railing of the ship and those boat things were hanging down? And that star field that was there, I painted that star field. I was getting a nosebleed. That was the one I did here was 14 feet high, 65 feet wide. And they flew me to St. Petersburg to do the murals down there. That one was 18 feet high and 85 feet wide. I can't believe I was doing this. I was hanging on to the rafters up at the top with an airbrush leaning off of a straight down 18-foot drop. I felt like it must have been what Michelangelo must have felt like, but she, the lady that was working with me, she would have to move me. She'd tell me to assume the position. I'd have to grab down on all fours, basically, and she would move me across the thing. It was pretty funny. She said, move me to the next image. Oh, cool. Thank you. But I specialized in an area of, in fact, I'll do an entire show on exoplanets, extrasolar planetary systems. And you all are familiar with this, or most of you are. The astronomers have now discovered and confirmed over 5,500 new planets or other planets orbiting other stars. That number is going to be in the trillions in years to come. They're estimating there are more planets in the universe than there are stars. And they found systems recently with 7 planets going around those. I don't know if y'all seen some of the ones where they've actually got, it was over a 12, I think it was taken with a Keck telescope. There was the host star in the core, and they had it blocked out. And over 12 years of time, you can see the planets going around it. Absolutely gorgeous sight. Now, keep in mind, these paintings here are not science fiction. They're not fantasy or Star Wars or Star Trek. I love that stuff. This is real scientific art. When I'm working with the magazines like Scientific American, they would pair me up with a researcher, their data, and I would have to take their data and try to figure out, okay, what's this going to look like when we get there? And I'll show you some more of that when we get there here shortly. And I've worked over the years with oils, acrylics, digital, a little bit of everything, depend on the nature of the job that I was doing. But what you're seeing here is a huge gas giant, similar to Jupiter, except that was you could fit about 5,000 Earths inside that. That is our Milky Way. Oops. That is our Milky Way in the background there, but the star that's illuminating this planet, these moons, and this moon in the foreground, way out of the field here, is another star. Can you imagine witnessing something like this? I mean, these are paintings, but they're representations of real things. Even in our own solar system, if you could stand on like Almathea, one of Jupiter's moons, Jupiter would stretch 150 degrees across in your front field of view, and it would be an absolutely glorious sight. This is a painting here of a blue giant star there. It's within a nebulous cloud that I did there over the years. I use those light refraction things in a lot of my artwork. You'll see more of that in this program. These paintings, by the way, have been published in magazines all over the place. They were all on NASA's Kepler website, and they've been published in, I've really been blessed over the years and had a lot of stuff published in a lot of magazines. This is a ring gas giant, very similar to Saturn, but again, much, much larger. And again, that's our Milky Way, and its host star is out of the field. You'll notice this moon in the foreground here has a thin haze on the horizon. They're seeing this occurring around moons like Enceladus, around Saturn, and Triton. Pluto has geysers and stuff erupting, being caused by these erupting geysers. It can be anything from nitrogen, methane, and water vapor, especially around Enceladus. I think there's actually water vapor spring. I think I may have an image of that in here. But like I said, these have been around. This is the same painting, or same thing. This is what that ring would look like, say what's our latitude here? 35 degrees north latitude, roughly. That's what the ring would look like from that, like that. But if you were on the equator, the ring would look like that. Can you imagine seeing that? I mean, you're going around this over a period of days, weeks, and as you go around this, the planet in the foreground is going through spectacular phases. That it was just incredible. This piece here has been around quite a bit. This is a huge Jupiter-class planet, except the moon in the foreground here has a substantial atmosphere of nitrogen and oxygen, which would give it a bluish-colored sky similar to the Earth. Can you imagine hiking in the Rockies, climb up over a rock face, and this is in your sky? That kind of stuff exists. I mean, that's something that just blows me away to think about, this stuff that's out there, and even in our own solar system. This is a promotional poster that I did when I was at the Pink Palace for a show we did called Rainwater. It dealt with the planet Saturn. Saturn is, of course, the second largest planet in the solar system. I think it's got 60 plus moons right now, and it had a spacecraft around it, Cassini, that was taking some really beautiful images. It detached a probe here called Huygens that actually landed on the surface of Titan. We called this show Ring World. I wanted to call it that, they didn't go for it. I didn't get out much when I worked there. That was That was a strange place to work. I loved it, the Pink Palace, when I was there during that time. I never knew one day to the next what I was going to be seeing. I came in one morning. We had a Hollywood special effects. Some of y'all probably saw that exhibit there. It was Hollywood special effects. I came in my door, and of course, the security office is down there and down the hallway. The exhibits department is across the hall, and then my office and studio and Roy's electronics room that he worked with that did all the electronics was right next to me. But I came in the door one morning, and I've got a 9-foot predator. You remember the movie Predator? Standing in front of my door, blocking the door. Its hand was torn all across through here, and the exhibits department had patched it, and it's got a sign on it that says, "Edwin, will you please paint my finger?" I was like, you don't see that every day. Those guys in the exhibits, I really enjoyed working with them. I remember as Roy Young, he would come across the hall over, and he'd go like this, motion me, come over here. And they'd had something, I loved paleontology and fossils, and he would always have something that would just blow you away in there to get a chance to see it. It was really neat. This is an actual photograph of Saturn. You've all seen, most of you probably have seen Saturn through a telescope. It's a beautiful sight. I hate this time of year, a time when all the planets are in the morning sky is the worst for doing public programs. You guys know what I mean? Everything's in the morning sky before daylight, and you're like, and I was telling you earlier, it's kind of hard to show the general public M81 and 82 through a telescope, and they'll go, wow, like this. They're used to seeing Hubble images. They show them the Orion Nebula or something like that, and it's going to blow them away. It's got, like I said, over 60 moons. That's one of them right there. Can you imagine what is in this? If you were standing on that moon, this is in your sky. Just think about that. It would be an incredible sight. Y'all have seen most of these. Some of this is kind of getting washed out, but I think you can hopefully be able to see some of it there. I think it's going to be fine. I just noticed some of these were kind of a little bit pale in there. Look at all those moons. Look how thin the ring is. It's only about oh yeah, that's great. Thank you. Oops. Got a light show in here now. Look how thin those rings are. They're only about, I think they're about 180,000 miles in diameter, and in some places only about the height of this room in thickness. They're composed mostly of chunks of ice, and but look how thin that is. You can see right through it. This is just beautiful stuff. Unbelievable images. Most of y'all have seen these, but I never get tired of seeing them. It's like seeing Saturn. You never get tired of seeing Saturn through a telescope. That is a bizarre sight there, image of this image. They took, the spacecraft was going on the backside. You can see the sun trying to peek out right there. By the way, that little dot, that's the Earth. We got our picture taken. Did everybody remember to smile on that day? One of these moons, I think it's in here, was Enceladus. And I believe this is some of the water vapor. That's a time exposure. You probably wouldn't even see that if you were out there. In fact, I don't think you would at all, but the camera was able to pull it out, especially on the back side there, and pull out some of that detail. This is a painting here I did of the surface of the sun. Man, has our sun been active here lately or what? Gosh, that was incredible. That eclipse and the aurora the other night, it happened right in the middle of our astronomy conference. I couldn't believe it. Wyatt Sanford, I mean, you guys know Wyatt out there. Some of you guys have been out there before. Everybody was just looking to getting ready to do imaging and stuff, and all of a sudden he starts hollering out there, going, "You got to look!" And right to the north, all this stuff started happening. The sun, it's really incredible. You look up there at it, and you could fit 1,300,000 Earths inside of our sun. That's pretty big. And some of the stars you see at night, like the red giants, they're so large they would engulf the orbit of Mars. And there's some evidence some may be even larger than that. These are prominences erupting off the surface there, and as the solar the Earth's about the size of that dot in comparison to the scale of that. This is a painting here I did of the eclipse in 2017. Did everybody get a chance to see that? Was that not incredible? This is the piece. I did it. The piece just split seconds after the sun peaked right there. It started to come out and you couldn't stand to look at it. It couldn't at all. And of course, Regulus was there visible and Venus. And I was just blown away. I'll show you a better shot out. The thing, I thought I was going to have a heart attack when I was looking at this. I'd never seen a total solar eclipse before. And this last one we had with that prominence, man, was that not incredible? Right there on about a 5 o'clock position was just absolutely glorious. The thing that caught my attention, and two, did y'all notice the difference in the corona between the 2017 and this one? It was not even remotely. This last one just barely had, something like this right here around it. It didn't have any of this extra stuff. I looked up there at it, and the first thing that came to my mind was, you guys know what the Star Trek uniforms look like with the little emblems? I looked at that, I was like, it looks just like a Star Trek emblem. There's a shot with it further back with the whole thing in there, painting. This is artwork. I was torn. This last one I saw, I just said, no, I'm not going to, I need to soak this in. But during the eclipse, I'm sketching and writing, and instead of it just relaxing and enjoying it, I was trying to capture as much information as I could in the limited amount of time that we had, but I was able to get enough information to do the piece. And I think, oh yeah, this is, my friend Roy's got 2 pugs. Those things are monsters, man. I mean, absolute monsters. They're really funny. But he was teasing me. We were looking up there at it. He said, you know what you need to do? And I said, yeah, I think Roy was the technical director at the Pink Palace, and he helps me a lot with stuff down at French Camp nowadays. But he said, yeah, I think I know what I need to do. So we call this Pug Side of the Moon. By the way, this is what happens when artists get bored. Okay, you ready for another cartoon? This is my brother's pug, Rascal. He's a miserable little dog. That dog has got the highest pitched bark I've ever heard in my life. Well, a few years ago, my brother had a dream. This is actually, I used to do a lot of children's art and cartoons and things for magazines and at the Pink Palace, and this was one of them. And but a few years ago, my brother had a dream, and in this dream, he went trot line fishing with his father-in-law. You know what trot line fishing is? Run a line across a river or lake, bait the hooks, come back a few hours later, and hopefully you got some fish. Well, in this dream, he said he was in the boat, and he reached down to get the line, to pull up the line and see if there's any fish on it. Well, he pulls up the line, his dog Rascal's on the line, except Rascal's got a pug's face, fish's gills, and a fish's body. And I'm dying laughing. I said, what on earth did you eat before you went to bed? So I made a pugfish for him. I always ask the kids when they see this, would y'all want to eat that? I always get some takers. There's a few of them out there. He looks miserable, doesn't he?
Good with hush puppies.
This is a painting of Pluto that I did for Scientific American magazine back in 2004. I was working, and Alan Stern, the principal investigator for that mission, was the author of the article, and I was hired to do the artwork, and I was taking their data, and it was back and forth. We were working several months out from publication. And I mean, I was thinking, guys, are you sure about this? This is a radical departure from anything. Now, keep in mind, this was 2004. The mission, they didn't get there, what was 2013, the New Horizons? And because they were detecting those hydrocarbons and things like that on the surface and the nitrogen. And I remember, I just kept thinking, they used to tease me. Ed Bell, the art director, he said one time to me, he said, well, if it's not accurate, you'll hear about it. And I was like, yeah, I know it. That's what I'll do. But that's one of its moon, the big one, Charon, up there. And they asked me to do something with the sun, because originally it just looked like another star, to make it stand out. And I said, well, it's down in that haze. It might have a little bit of a glow around it. And so I did that. But when we got there, we got pretty close. The artwork was fairly close. I couldn't believe it. And like I said, a lot of space art, when I do this, I can do most of it out of my own head. But you're doing something like this. This was the premiere of, the mission, with the stuff that was doing. And this was some of the actual photographs. And sure enough, that stuff was there. There's all of the hydrocarbons. You got these massive nitrogen frozen. There's that classic heart. Wasn't that a cool sight to see the Pluto for the first time? There's some of those cryovolcanoes. I still don't fully understand that concept. Can you imagine how cold would be there? That would be absolutely you're getting close to absolute zero out there in those kind of temperatures. This is an image of Mars. I do an entire program on Mars as well, and I do one on Pluto. It's a lot more elaborate. This program here is kind of a scatter shot. It covers a lot of a broad range of things. And of course, y'all all know about this image here. That's the Valles Marineris. Our Grand Canyon would fit as a little creek in the bottom of this thing. It stretches the length of the United States. And these are volcanoes on that Tarsus Plain there. These are actual, if you haven't gone and looked at the European Space Agency's Mars Express website, it is just phenomenal. The images that spacecraft has sent back are just absolutely jaw-dropping. I think they believe some of this bluish gray stuff in here is probably hematite, but this is a rift zone, and there's all kinds of avalanches and things that are coming through there. Our Grand Canyon would be about like that little squiggle right there in comparison to that. This is Olympus Mons. Mount Everest would fit down inside that caldera. That's big. This is a cool one. This is a 12-mile high dust devil on the surface of Mars. 12 miles high. Can you imagine that? This is a shot of Jupiter. This is from Galileo, I think. Trying to remember which some I get some of these things mixed up. And of course, Jupiter's the largest planet in the solar system now, and it's the last I saw, it was around 90 or 98 moons. I don't know. Does anybody know anything updated beyond that? That's a lot of moons to see that. This storm, I haven't seen the Great Red Spot in quite a while. Usually at the observatory, if it's on the central meridian, you can see it just looks like an eye looking at you. And it's bizarre how it's shrunk, a little bit. And I do a whole program on Jupiter as well. This is actual footage. You can fit 2.5 Earths inside that storm. It's been going around Jupiter for over 300 years. Yes, I'm sure it's probably longer than that. Check that out. That is an incredibly dynamic atmosphere. Check out those little moons, the Galilean moons zipping by there, and it's Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto. I've like been on the front end of that spacecraft. We got every now and then we get an infestation at the observatory of horseflies. And I had a school group of 5th and 6th grade kids, and one of the horseflies decided to land right there on the screen and was moving around that storm. And the kids, there was no way I was going to get their attention after that. It looked like that horsefly was surfing on that thing, the way it was moving. I was just like, go away, please. Look at that. That is just gorgeous. Now I'm getting ready to get into some major league eye candy here in a minute. Well, I think the Juno stuff's coming up here in a moment. Everybody doing okay? Imagine what that view, that's Io. Imagine what that view is on that every day, that stuff going on behind it there. And these volcanoes on Io erupting constantly. I read that Io literally turns itself inside and out in the span of like 10,000 years. That's an incredibly, it's being pulled and tugged. It's the closest of the Galilean moons. That gravitational pull on that's just got to be incredible. These are the Juno images. Most of you seen some of this. I put a whole bunch of the new stuff on here. Some of this stuff is very new. Who would have thought the poles of Jupiter would look like that? I just can't imagine, but these are just gorgeous images. I'm just going to skim. Oh, yeah.
How gas flow can turn into that.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I'm getting ready to show you. The spacecraft was only 3,000 miles above Jupiter's cloud tops. Can you imagine flying over that and seeing that? And there's ice crystals in this upper atmosphere. You can see it really clear on some of these images. And I swear some of these paintings look like Van Gogh's or something. You'll see what I mean here in a minute. One of them kind of looks like starry, kind of an abstract version of Starry Night. That's almost impressionistic or something. That's beautiful.
That's probably right.
Yes, these are all photographs. I like to get a piece about that big over my couch. Wouldn't it look cool? Have it about that big, maybe 3 by 4 feet or 5 by 6 feet or something. There's some more of those. I think that's ammonia ice and stuff up in the top of that, or can't remember exactly. Look at that. I'm just going to skim through these. They're just jaw-dropping eye candy.
You know, I got into fractal art for a while,
Uh-huh.
and I've got some really large chrome prints.
Oh,
some,
wow.
High definition computer generated fractal images.
That stuff
what's
is phenomenal.
amazing is that, you know, you can certainly tell the difference, but it's amazing how that appears in nature.
Oh, it
It's
is.
very similar to some of the computer generated art I've got. That's amazing.
Yeah, it is. Again, a lot of these are on the web now. You can get a lot of this. I just kind of put this together. I added some of the latest stuff and kind of got this one for this particular presentation. Look at that. Y'all remember 2001 and 2010 Space Odyssey? That was such a classic. Have y'all seen Europa Report? Anybody in here seen that one? It's a movie that came out it's been several years ago now, but it's an actual, they set it up to be like, it was a real mission to Europa. And it's set up like, it's not like a Hollywood-esque type film, but that is if you get a chance to check it out, I think it's on like Netflix or one of those type things, but it's called Europa Report. But it's very well done. It's accurate. It looks like they did their homework on a lot of the information that they're doing. And it's it deals with the monotony of what it would be like to actually be on a real mission, being on a spacecraft for that length of time. And look at that. The psychological effects of being in a confined area like that. Man, that's awesome.
That's still photos, right?
I'm
It's
sorry?
just unreal.
Oh yeah, it's incredible.
Now, these Hubble or Webb?
This is Juno.
Juno.
The Juno spacecraft.
Okay.
It's in I think it was in a polar orbit around, or is in a polar orbit around Jupiter. Going to talk a little bit about Shoemaker-Levy, and y'all remember that one back in some of this. That's an incredible. We could see it. I think in Memphis, I can't remember if it clouded out or something that night. It was night. Yeah, it was. But that thing was. I mean, those fragments when it got around Jupiter and broke it up into about 20 fragments, they started slamming into Jupiter's upper atmosphere and created plumes that were 2,000 miles high above the surface of those cloud tops. Every one of those explosions was equivalent to detonating our entire world's nuclear arsenal hundreds of times over. Can you imagine the energy released in something like that? That was the G impact. The Earth would have probably been about that big. If that had hit us, we wouldn't be here right now. July 2009, Jupiter was hit again. Here, that punched a hole the size of the Pacific Ocean. Imagine dropping a rock into a puddle of water and displacing what that would do to the Pacific Ocean if it created something that big. And of course, the one in 1908 in Tunguska, Siberia, this is incredible here. 1908, my hometown, I'm from Paragould, Arkansas originally, and my hometown was hit by a meteor back in the 1930s. It weighed about, it was a chondrite. It said it was one of the rarest chondrites that had been recovered, one of the largest ones. It weighed about 800 pounds. And I actually interviewed a woman that saw it. She said that thing went blazing across the sky. She was just a little kid, was as bright as a full moon. And to see that, but it was in the Field Museum in Chicago for years. And then they moved it now it was in the University of Arkansas at Fayetteville. And now I had heard that it's back in Paragould. They've got a museum there now, and I haven't seen it yet. I bought a small fragment of that. Stuff is expensive. It hit here. Had it hit 6 hours earlier, it would have completely destroyed the city of St. Petersburg, Russia. And they said it rang church bells in London, the impact. And this is what blew me away. The explosion was 1,000 times greater than Hiroshima. And something I didn't catch until when I first saw this, these photographs were taken almost 20 years later. They didn't get in there until 830 square miles, almost 80 million trees. Leonid Kulik, the expedition that finally got in there, was almost 20 years later, and that's what this was still look like. That would have been a miserable place to be too. That was a mosquito infested. They just didn't have the equipment to be able to get up into a remote area like that. That's the one that blazed over Russia. Wasn't that cool? Thing shattered. They said it damaged 7,000 buildings, injured 1,500 people, mostly from shattered glass. This is a piece of art I created of something I actually saw from Memphis back in the late 80s. This was based on that. A friend of mine was driving and we were out, trying to remember where I was at. I just happened to be looking. It was like in twilight, about like this right here, late in the day. And I happened to be looking towards Memphis International. And all of a sudden I see this thing blazing across the sky and tumbling. And I thought, oh my gosh, my first thought was an aircraft had exploded because it was that big and that bright. I got to looking at it, I said, that's not an aircraft. It turned out to be a Soviet rocket booster burning up in the Earth's atmosphere. It entered the Earth's atmosphere, they said, over the Gulf of Mexico and burned out over Canada. But it was like that, but it was tumbling. You could see it actually tumbling. Now, these are are y'all ready for something like this again? This is a little brighter than this is kind of based loosely on Hyakutake. What a comet. Was that not cool? I'll never forget, we went out to Stanton, inside the city of Memphis, and it wasn't that bright there. I kind of exaggerated a little bit there, wishful thinking. And maybe we'll get one like that, a big one, that bright. But inside the city of Memphis, you just see this little smudge. And I'll never forget, we used to go to Stanton, Tennessee, when it was, now you can read a newspaper out there, but it was dark. And I remember stepping out of the vehicle and looking up, and my first thought was these had to have absolutely terrified the ancients because that looked like a ghost in the sky. You remember that? Had a 60-degree tail on it just hanging in the sky. But I did a whole series of these kind of from the Delta of some comets. These are a little brighter than, I've got these toned down in later versions of this. I haven't had a chance to replace these yet. But I did a whole series of them of kind of, that's a bad day for Earth. This is a real bad day.
You know, Edwin, I got to tell you, you look at those comet pictures and, you know, sort of them being bright comets and stuff, it's hard to believe that they're painted.
Well, I appreciate that. I tell people, they ask me, how in the world do you paint stuff like that? I said, well, all you got to do is match the colors with the numbers. You got I've had a meeting one time, somebody asked me, said, how in the world do you remember all that stuff? I said, well, I make most of it up as I go along. This is a painting of an asteroid about something similar to probably what contributed to the extinction of the dinosaurs. Imagine an object 6 miles in diameter traveling at 50, 60, 70,000 miles an hour. In a split second, this is the second painting, a 1/2 mile wide or 6 mile wide chunk of rock. It's as big as Mount Everest. Will go to the bottom of the ocean in 2/3 of a second. The second painting, this would send a tsunami out at thousands of miles per hour and thousands of feet high. They've estimated the wave height would be at the cruising altitude of a 747. And if it hit the Gulf, the wave would wash up past Kansas and completely devastate everything on the coast, all the way up around Kansas.
So you're saying don't get rid of my snorkel.
Yeah. I'm going to talk a little bit about deep space here, and then we'll be done with this in here. Is everybody still doing okay?
Yeah.
I know this stuff can be a little intense. I get kind of animated sometimes. I had a news reporter did an article on my artwork, said Edwin becomes very animated when he talks about space. So can't help it. Used to drive my brother crazy when I was a kid. This is a promotional poster I did for the show we did called Images of the Infinite. Some of you probably saw this when it was there at the Pink Palace. This was back in the 90s. And, Hubble's in orbit around the Earth right now. And this is the classic shot that was taken by Hubble called the Deep Field. And the field of view, this is something that just blew me away. That field of view is about the size of a grain of sand held at arm's length in the sky. It's like a star. And there's thousands of galaxies in there. You see all of them at different angles. I think I got a better shot of it closer up. This is the Ultra Hubble Deep Field. Remember I showed you our galaxy edge on, but look at all the different angles of those galaxies. And that's in a spot, a very tiny spot of the sky. And you start multiplying that, you start to get an idea of the sheer immensity of the heavens. That's probably a star in our galaxy right there. But all that other stuff, that's a lot of, you think about every one of those dots having, little objects having anywhere between 1 and 400 billion stars in each one. This is a Hubble image of the Large Magellanic Cloud, a star-forming region. There's another one. This was the 25th anniversary. These stars have fired up here, and the radiation is actually pushing these gases back away from it. This dust material here is kind of hanging on. Those things kind of remind me of those mesas and buttes out west. You ever see those, how they stick up and they kind of, with that water going through there at one time, and the wind erosion and things like that is kind of let them hang on. That's a beautiful shot there of a star forming region, and looks like an angel, doesn't it? Kind of like wings maybe over here or something like that, in a gown or something, I don't know. That's a gorgeous shot of the horse head there. This was Hubble. I think this is it's either X-ray or infrared. I can't remember. I don't think that's visible light. Man, don't we live in a unique time that we're seeing this kind of stuff? And I'm getting ready to show you the James Webb stuff here shortly. There's another star forming region in NGC 603. Same thing, they're pushing these gases back here. This shot here, Dr. William Keel from the University of Alabama, he's one of the leading galaxy researchers, and he's one of our keynote speakers just about every year. Freddie, I think you've seen him, and Jim, you've seen him, I think, and he's an amazing speaker. Really zany guy. His resume, I couldn't believe it. He has worked on just about every major telescope in the world, everything from Chandra, Hubble, Kitt Peak, Mauna Kea, everything. He's done research on them. But a few years ago, he was getting ready to speak at our conference, and he calls me up and said, "Edwin, I got some big news coming out." I was like, "Great." And then I look on, they had discovered these with the Hubble, these phantom type materials that are being ejected, I guess, from these early galaxies in here. I think these were early. I didn't fully understand everything that was going on that as far as the time, but next thing I know, I look up, he's on CNN, ABC, CBS, and I'm thinking French camp. Oh my gosh, he's going to wind up having to cancel. And he didn't. Him and his wife both, they love French camp. They enjoy coming down there, and I always enjoy seeing him. He's a brilliant man, and real zany too. He's really knows how to communicate with the public. That's a planetary nebula there. It's blown off that outer shell, that star there, these lobes. What a shot there. That Pillars of Creation, that Eagle Nebula, it's a beautiful shot. I think this is like 1 trillion miles high. Kind of looks like a monster or something, doesn't it? These nebulas. This is a gorgeous shot here of a galaxy. Jim and Turpin and Dr. Mintz got a spectacular shot of Omega Centauri. That was unreal. And that was so low in the sky too, wasn't it? It was barely, I forgot how many trees, just barely at the trees in the south. And it's not, quite this, but it's on our website. If you get a chance, check it out. That was probably, I'd have to say that was the best shot I've ever seen of that ever taken from down there. This is a Hubble image here, but look at that. Isn't that beautiful?
I got to share a story about French camp.
Okay.
There's a couple of absolutely unforgettable events in my astronomical career that are why I still do this. One of them was I bought a telescope just to look at Shoemaker leaving night crash into Jupiter. And of course it clouded out that night, but 2 nights later we were still looking at the spots on the planet as it went around. And I was doing that from my driveway in Memphis. and I at that point, of course, I was hooked, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then some years later, I was down in French camp, standing on the ground, looking through the 30-inch, right, at Omega Centauri. And I forget what eyepiece he had, but it was like a TV,
Oh,
small
it's a-
TV screen, you know? And it was like you just reach out and touch it. It was just so amazing, the view of that. And I love that.
It's
It's
3D.
one of my favorite things to look at.
It almost looks 3D when you look at
Yeah,
a 32.
it's
That's a 32-inch Tektron. It's really incredible. Get a nosebleed looking through it if you have to get up to the top with it. That tube's about 13, 14 feet long. It's a big one. Oh, I accidentally duplicated that one there, I guess. This is a star forming region here. It's called the Cosmic Reef. This was the 30th anniversary. We were really blessed down there. For the 30th anniversary, NASA gave 70 facilities in the entire United States, banners as big as this wall here, actually a little larger than that, of this image. And we were the only one in the state of Mississippi that got one, and one of only 70 in the entire country. And we got one of them. They gave it to us, but it was and unfortunately it happened right in the middle of COVID. And I couldn't show it to anybody or do anything for months, until we got it out. But that is a gorgeous shot there. Look at these lobes being kind of ejected away from that the area there. It's just really beautiful. Okay, we're almost done. We don't like much more here. I've got the James Webb. We had our last conference last year, an unexpected treat. Jim Tucker was one of the engineers that helped build this thing and designed it. And he lives in Alabama with him and his family. They happened to be coming through, and he called me up, said, "Man, I don't know if you got room, because I'd love to do a program for you guys down there for the thing." And he did an outstanding. If you ever can get him here or something, he is really amazing. He does a presentation about not just he goes through the politics and everything too, about what it took to get this built. And it is absolutely incredible. But he did an outstanding job on that. These are the new images. Some of these are very recent from the James Webb. Look at that. Isn't that incredible?
What is that?
It's a spiral galaxy. I'm assuming it's taken with that. I'm not sure what wavelength or what that. It's not. I don't think it's not visible light. But it's that is kind of spooky looking, isn't it? Almost like some kind of spider web or something. That is a supernova remnant, I believe. I think that may be the one in Cassiopeia. I hadn't had a chance to do a lot of details on this. I was just grabbing some images. I was trying to find some cool stuff that look at that. Gosh. Look how precise those optics are with those star points on those stars. Man, what an ambitious launch. That was, oh man, it wasn't like they could go out there and fix that like they did Hubble. But if something had happened to it, but I'm so glad it made it out there. I'm sorry? Oh, no kidding. These are neat. Of course, these are gravitational lenses around that galaxy right there is warping these. Isn't that incredible that light or gravity can actually distort, create a gravitational lens? The gravity is so powerful. That's the Tarantula Nebula. This is another one here. These stars are ignited here and pushing these gases back. This next image I'm going to show you shows a comparison. It stays focused on this little area right here. This is a joke. Hopefully you'll get a kick out of it. It's a comparison of LaSalle and Hubble and the James Webb as far as resolution. And they zoomed in on this spot right here. Oh my gosh. That's a space otter. I just busted out laughing. Yeah, really. Oh, that would be funny. I may have to try to do a pug or something in some kind of one of these nebulas like that. Find something that would work. These are some galaxies that are intertwining in here. There's another planetary. Look at galaxy right there. And yeah, it is. This is, of course, Orion, and got the nebula, Orion Nebula there. Most of y'all seen this through a telescope. I want to show you a painting I did of it. I love this. These stars like Betelgeuse here, or I tease it, call it Betelgeuse, but I think it's pronounced Betelgeuse or Betelgeuse. I'm not sure. It's Arabic for armpit of Orion. But this is the Orion Nebula. You see it with a naked eye out there at Rainwater pretty easily. And this is a piece that I created based on about a 32-inch reflector in drawings. I did sketches and built it up over time and did a piece of artwork there for it. You don't see the colors. The 32, you kind of start to get a hint, and I mean a very subtle hint. It's almost not there, of a kind of a little bit of a pink burgundy kind of thing color in there, but it's not really. It's almost like averted imagination. You're thinking you're seeing it, but it's not, maybe not quite there. Of course, that's the Hubble close up of it. And there it is. This is 25 light years across. 1 light year is 6 trillion miles. The trapezium there, you can see it's actually digging out. It's kind of like the Grand Canyon. This would be like one of the rims around the top. This would be down inside. And those stars there, the radiation's pushing these gases back away from that core there. And this was by Bill Kennedy. Unfortunately, he passed away recently. That guy was awesome. He was a retired aerospace engineer from California. Him and his wife moved back to Columbus. The guy was absolutely brilliant. And he used to build stuff out there for me and was a remarkable individual, but he passed away a few years ago, or a couple of years ago. I don't know what happened to him. It was either COVID or something happened to him. But this was the first test shot of the scope. Phil Mintz gave us that scope that he had out there, Dr. Mintz. And this was just the first test shot, and it's kind of blown out there in the core. He didn't try to do anything, but that's just a gorgeous shot of the Orion Nebula. There's a horse head. That's always been one of my favorite. They call it the celestial chess piece. The flame nebula off here to the side. That's Zeta Orion there. This is a H alpha that was taken by Bill Kennedy. And this was taken through our Sangre telescope. It's down again. We've had more problems with that telescope. Unfortunately, it was a prototype from the beginning, and it's just, we're kind of thinking about maybe redesigning it to where it'll be a little more user friendly. It's got a lot of bells and whistles on it that are, unfortunately, they start to fail, the electronics on it over time. This is a piece.
Telescope?
It's the Sangre, the big one, the research telescope. Yes. We've had it's a great scope. We've just had a lot of technical issues with it. It's getting up in age. The electronics are starting to fail, components and things on it over time. And I've been talking to some of the designers of the original, the telescope itself, and that whole crew is they're doing different things now. This is a painting of a black hole I did for Science News magazine several years ago. And it was back in 2003, I think, or somewhere in that vicinity. I can't remember how far back. I did a number of these. This was one of them. But matter gets pulled into these things, and it's that accretion disk there, and you got an event horizon. These are huge jets of radiation blasting along a twisted magnetic field. And we're almost done now. I think I had put more images here than I thought I did. This is a painting I did for the front cover of Scientific American magazine. It was for the art thing was called The Once and Future Cosmos. It was also featured in the National Catholic Weekly with Dr. George Coyne. He wrote an article called Our Fertile Universe, and he was the Vatican astronomer at that time. But anyway, I did that piece. But the art director called me from Scientific American and said, "You got anything really flashy that they're needing a cover piece quick?" And I said, "Well, I did this little airbrush piece of a supernova kind of thing." I sent him an image of it. He's perfect. He said they use it. But imagine how powerful these supernovae, when they explode, we see them, through our telescopes. They're just a bright object, but the devastation that goes on around those is just incredible. I did a little animation sequence showing what happens you got the supernova there, and what happens to those planets in the foreground there. Is kind of a first shot there, and it begins to heat. It would literally start to form probably a comet tail behind it of some sort, and just be vaporized to ash. That's a lot of energy. They believe heavier elements are generated in those in a supernova or in a supernova explosion. This is a piece here I created of a binary star system. There's twin stars there. I've done a whole series of these over the years, and you got two suns in there. About half the stars you see at night when you look at the stars at night are not just two single point stars. There's two or more stars caught around a common center of gravity. They are finding planets around these, and if you lived on a planet around a multiple star system, you might have 2, 3, 4, 5, or who knows how many stars going around it. Whatever planet would be around that would be in an extremely tortured surface with those extremes in temperature and gravity extremes with those stars moving around each other. Can you imagine the tidal forces that would generate on any kind of planetary system? And I think, hopefully, last but not least, I have painted something down close to the Earth. This is a piece I did back in 1985 when I was in college, and the original was an oil. The original was a pretty good sized painting. It's probably about that big. It was an acrylic on underpainting with oil on top with it. It was painted on a wood panel, and I always use this piece in a segue with my groups that come out before we go into the planetarium. And I didn't intentionally put figures in there, like little cats or dogs. I ask them if they see anything, because you naturally, your eyes, a lot of people, you see clouds and things like that. But it's a great segue to go in to start talking about constellations. Well, I hope that that was that. And I hope I didn't wear you guys out too much. If you want to check out our website, it's rainwaterobservatory.org, and that's my email address there, one of them. And that's my personal website. I still keep it active. It's edwinfaughn.com. Well, thank you all very much. Hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you very much.
All right. I don't know that this is a technical presentation, so I'm not sure what you do with questions besides asking about paint. But yeah.
Mr. Vaughn, which interest came first, the painting or the astronomy?
Both, actually. My parents got me a telescope when I was in 3rd grade, and I still got the original that telescope. I restored it recently. It's out there at the observatory. It's a little 3-inch reflector, about that long, one of those Sears telescopes. But I was drawing, I can remember as far back as maybe 5 or 6 years old. But I started off drawing, originally was drawing military type stuff and aircraft. I was fascinated with aviation. In fact, I actually discovered perspective totally by accident. Noticing the shape of the wing when they were tilted, slightly at an angle. It went off in perspective, it had the illusion. I got to looking at that going, I would always do these isometric, these top-bottom views and Fokker triplanes or whatever, things like that. But I was doing comic book stuff, and of course Star Trek was out then, and that one started me quite a bit. It wasn't really until I was really starting to get interested in that kind of stuff that the Cosmos series came out. Y'all remember that back in, for me, I was 16 years old, and of course I was just blown away by Sagan, that initial stuff there. And I started getting interested in doing that type of art more seriously. And I met an astronomer. He was retired outside of my hometown, and we started doing articles together from area newspapers. And this is before I ever came to the Pink Palace, and did a lot of artwork for. We started getting him published a lot, and I sent my artwork to National Geographic. I was about 20 years old. Just sent slides. I just said, "Look, I'm interested in this. I'm a student. What do I need to do?" And they actually sent me a nice letter back, said your work really shows a lot of promise, and they told me to take this. As far as courses, that was the best advice I ever got, because when I came to the Pink Palace, that's exactly what I did. But it started merging the science. I was actually in advertising when I was in college, and we would get a homework assignment, we'd have to do a corporate identity thing of some sort. And I noticed I kept incorporating space stuff into that stuff. I got thinking, man, this is something stirring up here that I need to think about. But the two kind of merged together early, very early. And I remember drawing all kinds of military stuff. That was aircraft especially were just fascinating thing. And any kind of aviation, aircraft in the air and neat stuff. I hope that answered your
Well, you
question.
did, thank you.
Cars and motorcycles, that's what I got off on.
Yeah.
Cars and motorcycles.
I'm getting into that more now, it seems like, old cars and things.
All right. Yes.
Would you say your main medium with your artworks in this presentation, is it oil, is it digital, is it like?
It's a
what's-
mix.
It's mixed,
Mhm.
and do you do like a mixed media where it's oil and digital?
Yes.
Okay.
There's occasional, it depends on the job. There's sometimes I've had to do, a lot of times with the magazine stuff, like with Scientific American, we were working several months out from publication, and I had to make 7 or 8 major changes to the art. And if you don't do that, you're going to have to go back and repaint that entire thing every time it does it. I did a piece for Sky and Telescope magazine years ago with Kelly Beatty. You remember him was there, and he and I worked back and forth, and I was doing an art, I didn't have it in this presentation here, but it was a painting I did for an article they did called Puzzles of Planethood. And they were trying to determine where the planets could form inside of globular star clusters. But he and I were back and forth, but it helps me when I'm working with someone like that, because I get the visual part of it done, but I need that data, the science part of it to help, put that together. So, I don't know if I answered your question or not.
Absolutely.
Sarah's responsible for all the artwork on our website.
Cool. Oh, that's great.
This is
It looks
what-
fantastic.
I think-
Yes, she
Very,
did a
very nice.
wonderful job.
I want to commend you guys. I'm telling you, I was talking to Rick earlier. Y'all have done a fantastic job with this, the Memphis Astronomical. I mean, it's been a great program all along, but y'all have really taken it a step up. And it's just like we were talking about our RC stuff with flying. It's so neat to see it, progressing into what it's happening with right now. And the imaging, I don't do much astrophotography myself. I'm more painting, doing that. But as far as the artwork, I've always worked in like a photorealistic kind of style, cloud painting, that kind of stuff. But it just depends on the job. If I've got more time to relax and enjoy it, I'll work with traditional media. I'm not painting nearly as much as I did when I was younger, and I've kind of shifted gears and focused a little bit more on digital type stuff and
And what's your
photography.
digital software?
I'm sorry?
What's your digital software?
Over the years, I've worked with everything from like Terrigen. It was one of the 3D softwares that it was a good landscape software to actually build, the program. And I work with Photoshop and I paint with it. Start with a blank canvas and just start working layer upon layer and layer, just like I normally do with the regular thing. And it wasn't designed to do that necessarily, but I just,
I was amazed at the detail in the trees and the tree silhouettes and some of your pictures, some of your paintings. It's like, that looks real.
well,
And then all those stars, my God.
Well, when I was with the Scientific American doing some stuff, Ed Bell there, the art director, I started off with the traditional media. I was working with oils just like most other people did. But he told me one time, he said, I could tell you've had a traditional painting background because when you moved into the digital, you're carrying that with you. Yeah, it's same type of stuff with it. But he said we get a lot of submissions in here, and you can tell the person is not controlling the computer. The computer's controlling what their limitations of what they can do. And I just find ways around it. Try to make it do what I want it to do.
Yeah.
And that's a challenge. It's fun. But it depends on the job. I'm getting arthritis and things like that now. I'm not able to do paintbrush stuff as much as I used to. So anyway, I'm rambling. Any question?
Are y'all acquiring the Soli telescope?
I'm sorry?
Are y'all acquiring the Soli telescope?
We've got it down there.
Okay, is that Dr. Neil Soli's telescope?
Yes.
It belongs down.
It was the last one he had out in Colorado.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I worked with Dr. Neil Soli
Oh, cool.
at Methodist, and I always heard about his telescope. The guy he's brilliant to the point of being eccentric.
Mm-hmm.
I remember being in his office one time, and he had a book of astrophysics on his desk. And I asked him what he was doing. He said he was teaching himself to be an astrophysicist. And the next thing I knew, he moved to Colorado, and I think he joined a monastery. And he's just, I would love to run across him again, but I haven't seen him in so many years. But then I saw that you were getting the telescope. What size telescope is that? I never heard
It's a
of it.
0.65 meter how's that pronounced? Ritchie-Cretan or Cretan?
Cretan.
Cretan. It's a pretty good sized telescope, weighs about 4,000 pounds.
And it was his private telescope.
Yeah.
That's what amazed me.
Well, it was a prototype from the beginning.
Yeah.
They designed it, and unfortunately, prototypes, you have a single servo go down on that thing, it shut the whole thing down, and being able to utilize it. I've been talking with, I never met, I don't know if I've met Dr. Soley, I think I have, it's been a long time ago when I first came here, but that was all done before I came.
Jim Hill was still
Yeah,
there.
he was the one that initiated all that. We used it quite a bit for a while, and we've started having major component failures on it that are not cheap fixes. And we're looking at possibly getting it now to where it can become more user-friendly, to where we can, because the software that's on that it's not all off the shelf, it's completely custom made.
So the guy that was one of the electrical engineers for Google, and I forgot his name.
Wayne Rosing. Wayne Rosing.
Wayne Rosing. He and Neil got together and basically refurbed that telescope and basically did a $100,000 overhaul on it when they put it out at French Camp. And the idea was to make it part of the
Las Cumbres
Telescope Network. Observatory network, so that if something happened in the heavens that needed to be looked at, this was a network of telescopes around the world that could be redirected to that thing automatically, remote control, and that was the whole objective. I don't know that he ever actually got there.
I think that was the thoughts of it initially, that Wayne Rosen built, I don't know how many scopes, now they're building like 40-inch larger aperture telescopes. The bad thing about it too, not that scope necessarily, but Mississippi is not the best of places to have electronics outside like that. I came in one morning, I looked up and water's dripping from that dome inside. And of course the mirror, it's covered, everything's covered, but pollen, you get moisture in there, and then you got pollen, it gets all over the mirrors. So it's really a challenge to kind of keep it.
Neil had his photographs published in Space Telescope a long time before we had all this technological stuff we have now.
Right.
But it's a lot of that was done before I was here. That came in, so I wasn't a part of that.
I didn't know if that was something recent or whatever. Like I said, I always track of him.
I've got his email address.
I was there at First Light, when we first did First Light there. I was there that night, and just happened to be down there. Roy Fabiano and I were happened to be down there, so.
He's attended a few of our Memphis Astrophotography Zoom calls, and I've got his email if you want it.
I've not been in touch with him, so I don't know him on a personal level.
If you could send that to me, I'd like to make contact with him. He used to be my boss, and I've even had him yelled at one time.
Send me an email, and
Okay.
I'll forward it to him and you. And
yeah, I'd like to. He's
sure.
Yeah.
We had a lot when I first came on board there. I had to overhaul a lot. That whole facility was, the exhibits, everything, I completely, and I focus primarily on all that right now. And so we're looking at some possibilities of getting this to where it's going to be better utilized. It's just one of those things. I'm the only person out there. You almost need a full-time engineer to operate that telescope, or at least part-time, somebody that could I knew when Kennedy was out there, Bill Kennedy, he saw it. It's like, well, this is this is a lot. It's a lot more than just. And right now, you can get software off the shelf. That could be.
Yeah, the whole thing actually needs to be redesigned.
It's got those Malicam, the cameras, and the stuff like that.
I gave up on Malicam a few years ago.
And then what's that? My brain's gone blank. It's a massive camera on the back end of the thing. My brain's gone blank. S-Big.
Yeah.
The large one there. They're way out of date. These are getting stuff now with a 3-4 inch refractor that's looks like a Hubble image. So pretty neat. But it is a remarkable piece of equipment. It's like I was talking to the guy that actually designed it a while back, and I said, this thing is like a Ferrari, and it's got to be tuned constantly to keep it, functioning, and, or some kind of high-performance vehicle or something.
I think a lot of the issue with it, when you start dealing in telescopes that size,
Yeah.
keeping all the optics properly aligned as you move from one position to another, you've got to take into account the weight shift and all that stuff and compensate for it with motors and
One thing-
stuff.
One thing that happened before it happened not long after I was there, that Jim was there with that, they got it too far over at an angle, a whole mirror cell like this just dropped. Didn't fall out, it just dropped. We had to bring John Martinez out from California, Malibu, I think it was Malibu, or somewhere out there, and he dismantled that telescope. And I'll never forget seeing that all around the floor there. We pulled the primary was out of there, the secondary. We used you'll love this. The secondary mirror is about that big around on it, so 8 inches. We had to get a lathe, and had fired a laser to get it, the collimation on that, and use the beam to spin the mirror on the backside there, and the lathe then point it, you could get it dotted.
That's how you find the center.
Yeah.
Right.
And that was my first lesson in it's a very complex piece of equipment.
All right, anybody else got any questions? Well, Edwin, thank you very much. We really appreciate it. It was a wonderful show. You've done some wonderful work over the years.
Appreciate that.
And yeah.
Those who are not members, now you know it's worthwhile joining them.
I've got a whole bunch of different programs. This is just one of many that I do.
And also Rainwater Observatory. You know, if you ever get a chance to drive 3 hours down to French Camp, Mississippi, there's a wonderful little bread and breakfast there.
It's grown. That whole facility, that whole place has grown.
Oh, wow.
It's
Cool.
a lot.
So check it out.
Don't you have a major star party there?
We do. We just had our last one was in just a couple of weeks ago. It was May 8th through the 11th.
And Mid-South Stargaze happens every year in April.
We get people from all over the entire United States in for that. We do a free public program every second Friday of the month. It's the costing thing. It's sponsored by Fort County Electric, and I usually do the programming, and we'll do a main presentation. You get a chance to go through the exhibits, and then if it's clear, we go up out on the hill and take a look through the telescopes. The whole thing usually lasts a couple hours, and but it's free. It's open to the public. That's a good time to come. It's not
Great place to take a scout troop. They
Yeah, we work with a lot
got
of scouts.
camping areas, set up tents. They got a gazebo thing where picnic tables. So
And that's grown a lot. It's has. He's got that PowerPoint that I've got. You
Yeah.
can show that sometime.
All right.
You'll see the scale of what's going on out there.
We've been down there a bunch of times.
It's grown.
with Scout.
It's really
Got
yeah,
a bunkhouse and stuff. Yeah.
We've really been blessed. The scouts have. I never went through scouting myself, but they built our campsite, and I mean did some fantastic work out there with it. And they're getting ready now to build some brand new grills out there with really nice stuff. So it's neat to see that, and I'm pretty thankful for their help on that. We get a lot of scout groups from Memphis, Cordova, Collierville, all over Germantown, all over the place. In fact, a high percentage of them come from up here.
It's an organization well worth supporting too. So if you've got a little extra money every month, you can set up a little automatic pay thing to send them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
He does.
A friend of yours saw some of my pictures that I've taken and he told me to look you up. His name is Bob Witter.
Oh, yeah.
You know Bob? Yeah, he told me to go down there and see you sometime.
Yeah, I flew RC stuff with him, radio patrol.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah, he was saying about, no, he was replacing my heater in the dead of winter. My heating system went down. He said, you need to go see Edwin. I said, who is he? And he was telling me all about you. And I looked up here just now and said, that's the guy I was supposed to go see. He said, it occurred to me. So anyway, he said, when I saw you, tell you hi.
Okay, yeah, Bob's a real good friend of mine. He's that guy. Talk about a brilliant individual. That guy built, remember that extraordinary, weird looking thing he built? He's still developing that. I've never seen anything fly like that before in my life. It just will spin in the air like, it's really incredible.
I didn't realize he was that much involved here.
Oh, yeah. Oh, he's on everything from 40% scale aircraft, big stuff.
This is a good HVAC guy.
I actually worked with him for a little while.
Are we done?
He's somebody you can trust.
We got a private conversation. Are we done?
Yeah. So I'm trying to let everybody know that we're done on the Zoom. Thank y'all very much. That's all we've got for you tonight. Come back. No, don't come back next month. We're not going to be here. Check out our website for what we've got coming up in August. So thank you very much.